My name is Leela Grant. I'm 34 years old, and I learned the hard way that sometimes the people who smile at your child the sweetest are the same ones quietly teaching them fear behind your back. It started on a Tuesday that felt way too normal to become the day everything broke. I was in the kitchen, half paying attention to a podcast, half stressing over bills, when I heard the front door open way earlier than it should have. My son, Mason, wasn't supposed to be home for another hour. At first, I thought maybe school let out early or something, but then I heard it. Not footsteps, not his usual "Mom, I'm starving" energy, just silence, the kind of silence that feels wrong. I turned around slowly, wiping my hands on a towel, and there he was, standing in the hallway like he didn't belong in his own house. His backpack was still on, one strap slipping off his shoulder. His face pale, eyes red like he'd been holding it together way too long. And in his hands, he was holding this small brown envelope, not even a big one, just one of those cheap folded paper envelopes you'd expect to find receipts in. But the way he held it, like it weighed 100 pounds. "Mason," I said, trying to keep my voice light, "why are you home early, buddy?" He didn't answer right away. He just walked toward me slowly and held the envelope out. He said, "Don't freak out." And I swear, my heart dropped so fast it felt like it hit the floor, because I knew exactly who they were, my parents. I didn't even open it yet. I crouched down first, right in front of him, putting my hands on his shoulders. Hey, look at me," I said softly. His eyes met mine, and that's when I saw it. Fear. Real fear. Not kid stuff fear. Not "I got in trouble at school" fear. This was deeper. "Did anyone hurt you?" I asked. He shook his head. "Did they yell at you?" A pause, then a tiny nod. That was enough. I pulled him into a hug right there in the hallway, holding him tight. "You're safe. You're home. You did nothing wrong, okay?" He nodded into my shoulder, but his grip tightened like he wasn't fully convinced yet. And that lit something up inside me. Because nobody gets to make my kid feel unsafe and walk away like it's nothing. Not even family. Especially not family. I stood up slowly, still holding him close with one arm, and placed the envelope on the kitchen counter like it might explode. Because, honestly, that's what it felt like. I didn't want to open it, but I had to. Before I did, I asked him, "What happened over there?" He hesitated. Then he said something that still messes with me to this day. "They were talking about you like you weren't my mom." Yeah, let that sink in. My jaw tightened, but I kept my voice calm. Had to. For him. "What do you mean?" He swallowed hard. "Grandpa said you make bad choices, and that you're confused, and that maybe I should stay with them for a while until you figure your life out." I closed my eyes for just 1 second. Just one, because if I didn't, I was going to lose it right there. Instead, I took a breath, slow and controlled. "And Grandma?" I asked. He looked down. "She said kids don't always know when their parents are messing things up." Yeah, that hit different. Because it wasn't just criticism anymore. It was strategy. They weren't coming from me directly. They were going through him. And that's a whole different level of messed up. I turned back to the envelope. "Did they say anything else?" I asked quietly. He nodded again. "Grandpa said you'll understand once you see what's inside." I don't know what I expected. A letter? Some passive-aggressive nonsense? Maybe a legal threat? But nothing could have prepared me for what was actually in there. I opened it slowly. Inside was a stack of printed photos. The first one? Mason walking out of school. Alone. The second? Him at the park. The third? Him getting into my car, taken from across the street. My stomach dropped so hard I had to grab the counter. "What is this?" I whispered. Then I saw the note, folded, neat, my father's handwriting. I already knew it before I even opened it. That same blocky, controlled writing he used for everything, like even his words had to follow orders. I opened it, and I read, "Relax. This is called awareness. You're too distracted to notice what's happening around your son. We are not." My hands started shaking, but I kept reading. "If you insist on making reckless decisions, don't be surprised when someone more capable steps in." More capable. Yeah, he really wrote that. Like I was some kind of unfit parent, like they were the solution. I felt anger rise in my chest, hot and fast. But underneath it, something pulled her. Because this wasn't just manipulation. This was surveillance. Someone had been watching my child, and they wanted me to know it. Behind me, Mason's voice came out small. "Am I in trouble?" That question broke me more than anything in that envelope. I turned around immediately and knelt in front of him again. "No, no, baby, not even a little." "Then why are they mad?" I took a deep breath. Because how do you explain something like this to a kid? They're not mad at you. They're wrong about something, and instead of talking like normal people, they're trying to scare us. He looked at me, searching my face. "Are we safe?" And right there, that decided everything. Because being polite, keeping peace, trying to not escalate, that was over. "Yeah," I said firmly. "We're safe, and I'm going to make sure it stays that way." I grabbed my phone, not to call my parents. Not this time. I called my friend Jess, because Jess doesn't play games. She's the type who hears half a story and already has a plan. "Hey," I said the second she picked up, "I need you, like right now." She didn't even ask questions. She said, "On my way." Then I made one more call, and yeah, this one mattered, because this wasn't just family drama anymore. "Hi," I said when the dispatcher answered. "I need to report something involving my child." My voice didn't shake, not even once, because in that moment, I was done. Jess got to my house in under 10 minutes. No makeup, hoodie, hair tied up. She looked like she came ready for war, not a casual visit. The second she stepped inside, she clocked my face, then Mason sitting on the couch, clutching his hoodie. "What happened?" she asked, low and serious. I handed her the envelope without a word. She flipped through the photos, her expression changing fast. Confusion, then anger, then something sharper. "Yo, this ain't normal," she muttered. "This is straight up stalking." "I know." She picked up the note, read it, then let out a short, disbelieving laugh. "More capable? Are they serious right now?" Before I could answer, there was a knock at the door. Not gentle, not hesitant. 3 loud, heavy knocks. Jess froze mid-step. Mason looked up at me instantly, panic flashing across his face. And I didn't even need to check the window. I knew. "They're here," I said quietly. Jess moved fast. She guided Mason toward the hallway. "Go to your room, buddy. Lock the door. Put your headphones on, okay?" she said, her voice soft but firm. He hesitated, looking at me. I nodded. "It's okay. I got this." He ran down the hallway. Jess turned back to me. "You want me to open it?" I shook my head. "No, I do. Because this had gone on long enough." I walked to the door and opened it, but kept the chain on. And there he was, my father, standing on my porch like he owned it. Same posture, same cold eyes, same look like the whole world was just slightly beneath him. Behind him, my mother stood a few steps back, wringing her hands like she was nervous, but not enough to stop him. "Open the door, Lila," he said. Not hello, not how are you, Just an order. I didn't move. No. His jaw tightened. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. I let out a small, humorless laugh. You sent someone to take pictures of my son. We didn't send anyone. We observed. There's a difference. Jess scoffed loudly behind me. Oh yeah, that what y'all call creepy now? My father's eyes flicked to her, clearly annoyed. This is a family matter. Jess stepped forward. Nah, you involved a child. That makes it everybody's business. For a second, I thought he might actually lose his temper, but instead, he smiled. And somehow, that was worse. Lila, he said, softer now, you're overreacting. That word, overreacting. It hit like a switch flipping inside me. No, I said calmly. You're underestimating me. His smile faded just a little. Good. He continued. Let me explain. You've been making impulsive decisions, unstable ones. We're concerned. Concerned? I repeated. You're tracking my kid. For his safety. For your control. There it was, out in the open. He stepped closer to the door. You think you're doing what's best for him, but you're not thinking long term. You're emotional. You always have been. And just like that, I wasn't a 34-year-old woman in my own house anymore. I was 14 again, standing in the kitchen while he told me I didn't know how to think for myself. Except this time, I didn't shrink. I didn't go quiet. I leaned closer to the door, looked him dead in the eyes, and said, You don't get to talk about me like that in my own house. That's when his tone changed. Sharp, controlled, dangerous. You think this is your house? You think you're in control here? Jess whispered behind me, Okay, yeah, he's losing it. But my father wasn't done. He continued, You've made mistake after mistake, and now you're dragging that boy into your chaos. Someone has to step in. Step in? I repeated. You mean take over? If necessary. Silence. Heavy, thick silence. Then I said the one thing he wasn't expecting. I called the police. For the first time, he hesitated, just for a second, but I saw it. My mother gasped behind him. Lila, no, you didn't need to do that. Yes, I did. My father recovered fast, though. He straightened his shoulders like he was putting his authority back on. You're making a mistake. No, I replied. I'm fixing one. And right on cue, another car pulled up. But this time, it wasn't theirs. A police cruiser. Jess let out a quiet, Oh, let's go. My father didn't turn around right away. He just stared at me like he was trying to decide something. Then he leaned in slightly and said, low enough that only I could hear, You think this ends here. You have no idea what I can do. Chills. Actual chills. But I didn't back down. Try me. The officer stepped out of the car and approached. Everything okay here? I opened the door, chains still on, and stepped slightly to the side. No, I said. It's not. And just like that, the whole situation shifted, from family drama to something official, real, documented. The officer looked between us. Sir, I'm going to need you to step back from the door. My father didn't move. I'm her father. The officer didn't blink. And she's asking you to step back. That's when it hit him. This wasn't his house. This wasn't his territory. And for once, his authority meant nothing. He stepped back slowly, but the look he gave me, yeah, that wasn't over. Not even close. Inside, I handed the officer the envelope, the photos, the note. He went quiet as he looked through them. Jess stood next to me, arms crossed, like she was daring anyone to say this was normal. "This all came from them?" the officer asked. "Yes." "And your child received this directly?" "Yes." He nodded slowly. "All right, we're going to take this seriously." Good, because it was serious. And for the first time since Mason walked through that door, I felt something shift inside me. Not fear, not confusion, clarity. They crossed a line, and there was no going back. The night after the court hearing, the house didn't feel like a house anymore. It felt like a checkpoint, like every sound meant something, like every shadow had a story behind it. I kept telling myself, "You're safe now," but my body wasn't buying it yet. Harper had fallen asleep on the couch with the TV still glowing soft cartoons across her face. Ethan carried her to bed, real gentle, like she might break if he moved too fast. And when he came back into the living room, he didn't sit right away. He just stood there, staring at that empty corner where the silver box had been sitting days ago. "Claire," he said quietly, rubbing the back of his neck, "this wasn't random. Your dad didn't just snap." I knew that. Deep down, I'd always known that. This wasn't anger. This was control slipping, and him panicking. "He's losing grip," I whispered, "and he doesn't know how to exist without it." Ethan finally sat down, leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "Then we don't give him another inch." That night, we double-checked every lock, windows, garage, even the side gate. It sounds extreme until you realize someone tracked your kid like she was a package, and yeah, that changes you. The next few days moved fast, like life hit fast forward, but your heart was still stuck buffering. Lawyers, paperwork, calls, statements. Rachel practically lived on our couch, running through everything with me like she was prepping for war. "Claire, listen," she said one morning, coffee in hand, eyes serious. "This isn't just about what they did, it's about what they were planning to do." That sentence sat heavy, because tearing a drawing, that's cruelty. A tracker, that's intent. And intent, that's where things get real. Harper didn't go to school for a couple days, not because she couldn't, but because I needed her close. She stayed in her pajamas, wrapped in that same blanket, sketching little things here and there, nothing big, nothing like before. At one point, she looked up at me and asked, "Mom, if someone says they love you, but they make you scared, is that still love?" That question, man, it hit different. I sat beside her, tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "No, baby, that's not love. That's someone trying to control you." She nodded slowly, like she was filing that somewhere important. And right then, I realized something. This wasn't just about protecting her physically. It was about protecting how she understands love. A week later, we had to go back to court. Temporary orders were one thing, but this was about making it stick. My parents showed up. Of course they did. My father walked in like he still owned the room. Same posture, same energy, like rules didn't apply to him, like consequences were for other people. But this time, things were different. Because this time, I wasn't a scared kid standing in a hallway waiting to be told I was too sensitive. I was a mother, and I was done. When it was my turn to speak, my hands were shaking, but my voice, solid. I told the judge everything. Not just the box, not just the tracker, the years, the control, the manipulation, the way fear was dressed up as care. And then I said the one thing that mattered most. My daughter is afraid of her grandfather, not confused, not upset, afraid. And I will not raise her to believe that fear is something she owes to family. The courtroom went quiet. My father scoffed under his breath, shook his head like I was being dramatic, but for the first time, nobody followed his lead. The judge didn't rush. He reviewed everything carefully. Photos, evidence, statements. And when he finally spoke, his words were calm, but they carried weight. The protective order was extended. No contact, no visits, no indirect communication. And any violation would escalate things real fast. My mother cried. Quiet, broken sobs. My father? He didn't cry. He just stared at me. Not angry, not loud, just cold. Like he finally realized something he didn't want to accept. He wasn't in control anymore. We walked out of that courthouse not celebrating, but breathing. Like really breathing. Like air finally reached places inside me that had been tight for years. A month later, we moved to Denver. Fresh start, new house, new routines. At first, Harper slept with the hallway light on. She kept her door cracked, checked the windows twice before bed. But slowly, things shifted. She laughed more, drew more, started making friends at school. One afternoon, I picked her up and her teacher pulled me aside. She said, "I just wanted you to know, Harper stood up for another student today, said nobody gets to make someone feel scared just because they're older." I swallowed hard. That wasn't something you teach in a lesson plan. That's something you learn by living through something and surviving it. A couple weeks later, I found her in her room, sitting at her desk, completely focused. She didn't notice me at first. And when I finally looked at what she was drawing, I froze. It was our house. Not perfect, not fancy, but warm, safe. Ethan was outside fixing something like always. I was on the porch, and Harper, she drew herself right in the center. But this time, she added something new. A small sign next to the door. Safe people only. I leaned against the doorframe, trying not to cry too loud, because that drawing, that was healing. That was her taking back control. That was her rewriting the story. And in that moment, I realized something I wish someone had told me years ago. You don't owe access to people just because they share your blood. You don't owe silence to keep the peace. And you definitely don't owe your child's safety just to avoid conflict. Sometimes walking away isn't breaking a family, it's saving one. So if you're listening to this right now and something in your gut is telling you that a relationship in your life doesn't feel right, don't ignore that. Don't gaslight yourself into thinking you're too sensitive. Listen to it. Because peace doesn't come from pretending everything's okay. It comes from protecting what matters most. And if that means setting boundaries so hard they shake the room, then so be it. Because at the end of the day, the people who truly love you won't need to scare you to stay in your life. And the ones who do, they were never safe to begin with.